Hey babes, welcome to the Kitch Clatch. Today I'm going to talk to you while I make my Mabon bread. Mabon is the pagan holiday for celebrating the first day of fall, and fall is my favorite season. I love the crisp, cool air and the way the leaves turn, and sitting outside in the chilly mist with a hot cup of tea. I'm not really a fan of pumpkin pie though. I like fruit breads, and I love making Mabon bread. I'll leave a link to the recipe I murdered down in the description below. I think originally it's a Christmas recipe, but I replaced all of the fruits with fall fruits. I had a few extracts that I had lying around in the cabinet. I used dried apricots. I had to chop them myself because they came whole, but they're delicious and totally worth the effort. And I did use chopped dates, but next time I think I'll just either add more apricots or use figs because the dates kind of dissolved in the bread. And I also used a dried berry mix that had raisins, golden raisins, and dried cranberries. And you don't have to have all of these ingredients. You can use whatever, you can get your hands on. It's all about what you like. This is just what I like. And you don't have to be perfect at making bread to make Mabon bread. In fact, the only way you're ever going to get better is to practice. Plus, Mabon's about being thankful. So be thankful for the skill level that you're at right now and allow yourself to be human. It's okay to make mistakes. What's important is that you learn from them for next time. I made plenty of mistakes in this video. I actually forgot to knead the bread at first, and also my first bread was super messy and trying to break apart, and I forgot to check the recipe, and I put my egg wash on before the second rise. The egg wash isn't in the recipe, it's just something that I think is pretty because it makes the top of the bread shiny and golden brown. But anyway, back to the actual video. I got all of my stuff together and I melted the butter and I put the milk in, and I'm using my soap thermometer because I don't have like a candy thermometer that I could just stick in the milk. But once I got it to the temperature for the yeast, I put it in the bowl of the stand mixer, which you don't have to have. I just really wanted to use it because I got this for my birthday. I'm trying to get it to where it's not too hot. I'm dissolving the sugar and salt real quick, but you don't want to put it in something that's too hot because you'll kill your yeast. So I mixed it up a little bit and checked the temperature to make sure that it wasn't super, super hot before I added the yeast because you don't want to kill it. You want it to be able to rise. And so it said 110, and that's what it was supposed to be. So I went ahead and I put the yeast in and mixed it all in until it was dissolved. And from here, you're just going to see me make a mess because what I have been working on lately is accepting the fact that I'm human and that sometimes things aren't going to be perfect. I'm a Virgo. Virgos are notorious for struggling with perfectionism. It's a real struggle. I won't even lie to you. It's honestly probably taken me a few months just to get used to the sound of my own voice so that I can make this YouTube video for you. But I am working on it. And I believe in you if you want to work on it too, if you struggle with the same thing. So it said to add the flour a cup at a time, but I put the flour in this heart bowl because it was super cute and I thought you guys would like it, and it wasn't functional. It was just adorable and I felt the repercussions of it. But I also added some extracts here that may have played a part in the fact that my bread kind of came out a little dense. So if you guys know about making bread and you see something that I did wrong, please let me know in the comments below because I'm not an expert at making bread by far, but I like to do it. So I want to get better, and the only way I'm going to get better is if I know what I did wrong, and I just, for the life of me, cannot figure out why this bread came out so dense. And also, it's the first time I've ever made bread with the stand mixer. I've made cookies with it before, But bread is a little different because, you know, the yeast and the gluten and everything. And so I may have just overmixed it. I don't know. I kind of played with the settings on this thing a little bit. So, I mean, if you guys have any tips on lighter, fluffier bread, or what makes the difference between a fluffy bread versus a dense bread, please let me know. And also, I'd like to know what you guys' traditions are for Mabon, because this is just something that I like to do. I know that there's lots of different traditions, and I know with quarantine, a lot of traditions are really getting kicked in the butt right now because we can't really gather up and get together for like a big meal or anything like that. Especially in my house, my fiance is going through cancer treatments, and so we have to be super, super careful. But that's a video for another day. Right now, with it being Mabon, I just want to be thankful that everybody is healthy and that we've been able to keep food and a roof over our head, because I know that for a lot of people, especially where I live, it's not a possibility, and it breaks my heart. But I'm blessed and fortunate that we've been able to. So let's make this bread. Sorry for getting sad on you guys. Oh yeah, I turned up my stand mixer like all the way just to see what it would do, and it just about shook off the counter. I would not recommend it. I don't know. But it was time for me to transfer it into a bowl to let it rest, and I just used some of this spray olive oil because it's easier to oil your pan whenever you can just spray it, or your bowl. And so I sprayed it really good, and I sprayed some on my hands so that maybe I just didn't get as stuck to. I don't know, I read it, I wanted to try it out. So I got it taken off of the edges of the stand mixer bowl. I probably could have just let it rise in the stand mixer bowl, but then it wouldn't have gotten greased, and so I don't know how well that would have worked. If anybody knows if that works, if anybody's tried that before, just let me know in the comments. So I honestly kind of struggled with this a little bit because it was still really tacky. But I got it in the bowl and I flipped it over like it said, just to make sure the top was oiled. I have dough all over my hands, so I had to go wash my hands real fast. But I went and put a hot, or warm, not really hot, but warm damp cloth over the top of this and let it rest. I originally planned to just let it rise for 45 minutes, but it went a lot longer than that. That also may have been one of my issues, because I had to go do some things and I wasn't expecting to need to do them at the time that I made the decisions that I made, because I got distracted. But what I did is I decided that since it needed to wait, I figured I would just Twitch stream and draw. So here's me covering it up with the warm, damp towel and cleaning up a little bit, cleaning up the stand mixer. You know, always want to make sure you do that because you can't really put that whole thing in the dishwasher. So I figured I would draw a pumpkin. I'm new to drawing. I've honestly just recently started actually doing the things that I wanted to do because I just had this huge executive dysfunction with doing them. So I'm super grateful that I've kind of branched out and started doing things. This is the third. This is the third thing that I've done, like drawn with my tablet. The first one I didn't actually shade, so this is the second one that's ever 3D. My self-portrait that I did for my icon, that's the first. So I'm just kind of playing with brushes. I'm using Krita software. It's a free software that works with Windows and Android, and I'm just kind of playing with some different techniques that I've heard about. So, I mean, nothing that I'm doing is going to be perfect, but I'm just going to come to terms with that But I am actually really happy with how this pumpkin turned out because my skill level with drawing is very, very low. Honestly, drawing and learning to draw, the idea of it was really just to try to bond with one of my kiddos because she is really fantastic at drawing. And I figure if I can get better at drawing, I can show her that she can really expand what she's capable of. But here's me making sure the bread is done. This is what it means to, when it does the thing that says, I can't remember what they said, but you stick 2 fingers in it, and if it holds the shape, then it's good to go. And it said to turn it out on a floured surface, and I forgot that meant to knead it, so I really just spread it out on this surface and started trying to make my first loaf, and it was a disaster. Like, it was really rough because it was falling apart and it did not work right. So here's me going back and kneading it after splitting it and everything because, you know, I guess I forgot the bread still had to be kneaded. Honestly, I think my thought process was that since I have a stand mixer and I mixed it with a stand mixer, I don't need to knead it, which I don't know if that's the case or not because I've never used a stand mixer for bread. So if you know, like, if that's actually true, I don't know where that idea came from, but that's what I thought. But it turned out so tough that I'm starting to think that I've maybe over kneaded it quite a bit. So keep that in mind if you guys are trying to learn how to make Mabon bread. This video is not really a bread tutorial as much as it is me making the bread and telling you guys what Mabon means to me. I definitely advise you guys to try it because even though it's kind of dense, it's a little chewy, it still tastes amazing, and it's still an important tradition to me, and it could be an important tradition to you too if you end up liking the bread, or if you end up liking making the bread, because that's one of my favorite things about this tradition is making the bread and trying to do the braids. I'm not the best at the braids. I'm honestly not even good at it, but I want to encourage you guys to try to do things that you're not good at, even if you're almost 30 like me or older. It doesn't matter. Like, if there's something that you have wanted to do, try it out. You only live once. Well, that's the saying, you know, YOLO, but go ahead and do it. And honestly, like, be open to feedback. Like, you can see my other loaf over there. I just used 3 strips on that one, and I couldn't figure out which direction that the braids were really supposed to go in. So I remembered that one of the tutorial videos that I watched whenever I first started doing this, because I have a loaf pan, I just didn't want to use it. I wanted to braid it. I wanted it to be pretty. One of the tutorials that I watched back when I first started braiding bread, it looked so much easier for them to braid with 4, which is not how I braid my hair, so it's kind of strange, but you can also get a better look at it. Like, you're supposed to, like, flip it over, and whatever is under goes over next, if that makes sense. So you bring the outside in, and you cross the outside together, and whatever's on top needs to go on bottom next. So, like, this one on the right needs to go over to the outside on top, but this one to the left needs to go under to the outside, and then you cross again. And you know, you can see me kind of stopping and thinking about it because it takes time. It's okay. It can take time. You don't have to flip through it like an expert when you're just learning. So I strongly encourage you to try out something new. Do something that intimidates you, because once you do the thing that intimidates you and you find out that, hey, this didn't turn out like a disaster, this is actually pretty okay, you can realize that you should intimidate it. Like, I might not be the best at bread making, but after making this bread, I felt like a bread making master. Like, one of the loaves is already gone, and I feel like $1,000,000 because I braided this and I made it from scratch. It made me happy. I used this. I'm not sure if that's really what I should have used on the bread. I know I've used it for cakes. I think maybe next time I'll just, use a regular oil, but you're about to see me mess up. This is one of my favorites because I'm sitting here and I'm filming this and I'm not paying attention to like the actual recipe, and I'm like, well, I really like it when my bread is kind of golden brown on top and shiny. So I'm going to put an egg wash on this and see if I can stick some confectioner sugar to one of them just to make it a little bit sweeter. And so that's the mindset that I'm in. I'm like super happy about egg washing it, really getting into it. Making sure I get all of the little nooks and crannies and all the creases so that it turns out nice and shiny with the egg wash. Because, if you're going to use a whole egg to egg wash 2 loaves of bread, then definitely egg wash the crap out of it because you have so much egg wash. So an egg wash is, you can do it with a whole egg or just egg whites. I prefer to do it with egg whites and about a tablespoon of water. And you mix that up really good, and then you can just brush it on. And the brush that I'm using, one of my old roommates used it on something hot, and it kind of frayed it, but it's still fine. Like, it's been like super thoroughly washed. It's just kind of burnt. But yeah, so I put some confectioner sugar on the top. It's yellow confectioner sugar, so it's gonna look a little bit yellow here in a second, but it turned out fine as far as the sugar on top. I put it on the ugly loaf because I wasn't sure what was gonna happen, and I didn't want anything to happen to my pretty loaf because I was so proud of it. Then I read the recipe and found out that I needed to let them rise again. So I had to cover them up and let them sit. And not gonna lie, I was a little disappointed. But then I came back and they were a little bit bigger in 45 minutes. And the sticky part, and like I think it was the egg wash, but they were super sticky. And so I was like, dude, if I wait any longer, these things are gonna dissolve. I gotta put them in the oven. I don't know why I thought they were gonna dissolve, but I just really felt like they needed to go in or they weren't going to be good anymore. So I stuck them in the oven and I put them in at I think it was 375 on the recipe. It was the temperature on the recipe, and I put them in for 25 minutes. I had to turn the camera sideways here because I'm filming this myself, which is why I'm doing the voiceover, because honestly, you guys, it was a creative feat to hold this camera. So here I got them out, and I could kind of see like a little bit of dough peeking through, like that didn't look done. So I grabbed a toothpick and I just wanted to test them out and see what was going on with them, because even though they look beautiful and golden brown, they're just kind of looking a little undone. So I poked the toothpick in, and you guys can't see it because my camera was not focusing right, but there's some dough that is just still stuck on there, and you should not eat raw flour. That can give you salmonella. I thought it was raw eggs that gave you salmonella. So, like my whole life, I thought that eggs were what did it, but really raw flour can give you salmonella too. So, don't eat raw flour, kids. So I put them back in the oven for about 5 more minutes. Honestly, they could have used about 6 or 7 because my dough was a little dense. But really they turned out great. The ugly loaf right here is already gone. The pretty loaf is still there. So So I pulled it out and put it on my cooling rack, which I also got for my birthday. If you don't have a cooling rack, what you can do is you can put some tinfoil on your counter and just transfer them off of the hot pan so they stop cooking on the bottom, because that's the most important part. The cooling rack just lets some air get underneath them so that they're not getting moist. So I cut some off and I took a bite of it, and it wasn't very sweet. It was good, but it wasn't very sweet, and I was hoping for something a little more sweet. So I used the glaze recipe that was on the recipe from the website, and I just decided I was going to put it on there. Now, honestly, if you're going to do this, you really should have something underneath your wire cooling rack, or you're going to have glaze all over your countertop. And that seems so obvious looking at it, but when you do a glaze, you want to do a glaze while it's still hot. And so I was worried that the bread was going to cool off too much for the glaze to really stick on there right. And I was really frantically hurrying to get this glaze on there. I wanted to try it first to make sure it wasn't awful, but it's a really good glaze. So that's the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Tune in next time.